What's up, students? It's your boy PGT and welcome back. Today I'll be showing you the process of regrowing out a mushroom that I found in the wild. Now this wild mushroom is called the bear's tooth head mushroom, or the bear's head mushroom. I came across it in the middle of a tree when I was walking my dog, and if you're anything like me, you know that this is a mycologist's wet dream to be finding wild gourmet mushrooms. Now you're probably asking me, what the hell is a bear's tooth head mushroom and why should I care? Bear's tooth head, or aka Hericium americanum, is a common tooth fungus found in the trees in North America. Very closely related to lion's mane, which is Hericium erinaceus. One of the key ways to distinguish the difference between these two mushrooms is bear's tooth head would typically have branching patterns and very long teeth growing downwards that look like icicles, and the lion's mane mushroom would be a lot puffier and structured with shorter teeth. Now, the main reason I care about this mushroom is because it tastes delicious, and they're pretty easy to grow. Now, I did not get a chance to get footage of the actual cloning process of the bear's tooth head. Instead, I'll show you this picture of the fruit that I started with. I had to climb an oak tree and jab a stick at the mushroom to get at it. I put it in a doggy poop bag and brought it home with me. I did leave some on the tree that I found, hoping to see more future mushrooms grow from the same spot one day. And if you didn't know how to clone mushrooms, I do have a video going over the process on my channel. So here we are with 2 plates that I have cloned out here. Now I started off with 5 plates and 3 of them ended up with some really bad contamination. I mean, these are also contaminated as well, but there's some decent mycelium growth on here that I'm going to be taking and making transfers from in order to get some clean cultures going. Now the most difficult part with cloning wild mushrooms is that they've been out in the elements for quite some time and they're far from being clean and sterile. You know how much bacteria will be coming along with these fruits, especially since it fell on the ground after I removed it from the tree. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to clean up the process of contaminated plates. So anyways, with the original fruit, I ended up cutting out the teeth of the fruiting body, and then I just threw them straight on agar. I tried to split the mushrooms in half to get tissue from the center, but it was like almost impossible with the small sample I got. So the next best thing to do is just plop pieces of the mushroom, clean or not, directly on the agar. Alright, so these plates here, I've had them sitting out for about 2 weeks with the clone tissue on there, and this is what the growth that I have after 2 weeks. So in here you'll see a bunch of green mold, some bacterial as well, but on the outer edges here, you'll notice the mycelium is kind of growing away from the contamination spots, and I try to select the cleanest mycelium I can find that's furthest away from the contamination. So I'm going to make a little cut and put that on some new plates and try and get those growing out. Right, so after every cut, I wipe down my blade with some isopropyl alcohol and a towel, and then I re-flame sterilize it using, in this case I'm using an induction sterilizer on the left of the screen here. If you're curious about where I got this, I got them from Thermohelix off of Instagram, so shout out to Thermohelix for the great induction sterilizer. If you're interested, I'll have links in my description on where you can find them. Okay, so with one transfer out, I'm going to try and look for another clean piece of mycelium to make another transfer from. I always like making 2 to 3 transfers out of plates just to be on the safe side. You never know what will happen on your new plates. Some might get contaminations in there, so it's always good to have more backups. Alright, so again, I like to kind of go for the mycelium growth that's on the outer edges. This is where I find to be the healthiest cultures come from. They're the ones that are constantly moving and colonizing, so they're going to be the most vigorous in growth. So they'll do very well on a new transfer if you can get pieces of mycelium on the outer edges. Alright, so I've made 3 transfers out of this plate, and I'm pretty much good with this. I'm probably going to end up chucking this plate away here, and just letting the new growth go out on the new plates and go from there. Yeah, in the trash it goes. Alright, now with my plates, I'm going to go ahead and wrap these up in parafilm to make sure that they're clean and ready to go, and I'm going to label them as well just so I don't forget what exactly I'm working with here. As far as labeling the plates go, I typically will put down the name of the species I'm working with, the date that I made the transfer, and I'll indicate which transfer this is. So I did a clone to first plate, and this is a transfer to a second plate, so in my opinion I would label it as a T2 transfer. Now I'm done with the first set. I'm going to work on the second plate here, cleaning this one up. So I usually keep a stack of pre-poured agar plates in a clean Ziploc bag here until I need to use them. So I'll take out a couple here from my stack. And of course I'm flame sterilizing my blade here. Get ready to make some cuts. So let's take a look at this plate here, shall we? As I'm unwrapping this plate here, I kind of want to go over a little bit about how I set up to do my transfers here. As you can see, I'm pushing the clean plates up closer to the flow hood, and as I'm removing the lid off of this plate, I always kind of keep it furthest away from the flow hood. I want to try and work in some sterile air. But anyways, with the plate open, I'm going to make a transfer here. Now normally I would probably do this transfer closer to the flow hood, but in this case I wanted to kind of give you guys a closer look at the plate, so I'm just going to hold it up closer to the camera for you guys. But from this plate here, it looks like I have either trichoderma or some penicillin mold growing in the middle here. The yellow, goopy, slimy looking thing is bacterial. And most oftentimes you'll get bacterial growth on your plates if you're cloning from like wild mushrooms. It's very common. So I think with this plate here, I might just be good with just the two transfers. Taking a look at it, I'm trying to determine if there's anything else I want to take a transfer out of. Not really. Alright, so I'll chuck that one in the trash now. Right now I actually have a third plate that I'm going to clean up from. I wasn't considering it, but I do see there's some decent mycelium growth here that I can capture, and since I have two other plates of agar already in front of the flow hood, I might as well do some transfers out of this plate onto those as well. And once again, I'm running my blade through the induction sterilizer. I always like to do this between working on plates and transfers. Sometimes I'll make like 2 cuts into a plate, then I'll sterilize. Some people like to do it after every single cut. So it's all a matter of preference and a matter of how clean your environment is. Alright, so let's take a look at this plate here. Obviously we have a lot of green mold in the top corner here. Now what I'm going to do is select what I feel is the healthiest looking mycelium growth from the plate. And typically that's going to be more towards the outer edges. So, transfer there. And let's see if we can find one more sample to collect from. I think this should be good enough. Alright, so the main purpose of this is just to get some clean mycelium culture going so that I can put these to grains and then grow them out and try and fruit them. And then if I want to just try and further isolate down their genetics, I can work with the clones from the fruits after I get them going. But for now, I just care about getting some clean culture so that I can get any type of grow going. Alright, so here we are 2 weeks later. And I have some fully colonized plates here that I'm going to go ahead and spawn out to my grain jars. So first thing is I'll sanitize everything down with some isopropyl alcohol, wipe down my gloves with this. Also go ahead and spray down a piece of paper towel, and I'll wipe down my jars with this. Just make sure everything is clean before I start my work. Now I'm using millet jars here. Millet has become pretty much my favorite grains to work with. I personally like millet just because of how fast I can get the grains to be colonized. Once you get to like 30% colonization, I would shake them up. I also have some bird seeds here as well. So I wanted to kind of do a little bit of an experiment and run these bear cultures on millet, bird seeds, and as well as oats, just to kind of compare the different grains and kind of see how they end up colonizing the grains over time. So this is my jar bolts here. Right now I got my jars all cleaned up. Let's go ahead and take a look at our cultures here. So I want to give you guys a good close-up of these cultures. Oh, one last thing I forgot. I gotta sanitize my X-Acto knife here. So now that everything is actually clean now, I'll go ahead and show you these plates. Alright, so the top plate here. A lot of clean mycelium growth, a lot of tomentos growth. Pretty healthy looking. I don't see any signs of contamination in there. Here's another plate here. This one's actually started forming some fruit bodies on the plate. And that's an indication that you've got some healthy culture going there. When they're so vigorous that they start forming fruit bodies in there. A lot of Hericium species are like this. They're very vigorous growers, and they will pretty much take over whatever nutrients that are available in there. So a lot of these have already started throwing up little pins of Hericium, which is a great sign. It means that I've got the right cultures here, and I'm not growing some random mode that I might have picked out from those plates. So it's a very good sign to see. Hericium culture is very interesting growth, very prickly, very chaotic, and I just think they look amazing. So even with these little fruit bodies in here, I'm going to go ahead and just make cuts in these and just spawn them directly to the grains. The little fruiting bodies, the pins, they're basically mycelium, so it's going to break down and recolonize the grain jars as I go in here. So, alright, so I'm going to practice some sterile procedures here. So what I do is I'll go ahead and loosen up my lid, and I'll keep it in front of the flow hood. I'm only going to minimize the amount of time that the jars are exposed in the open air. Alright, so here's our first clean culture plate. Now, I decided to start with this one because it has the most fruiting body growth, or I would think it's probably the most vigorous growth culture that I've selected out from the previous plates. So I start with unwrapping the plates here. Now take our blade, going to flame sterilize it like usual. Make sure our blade gets red hot. Alright, now I'll kind of just hold it out here until the blade cools down for like 10 seconds or so. Alright, so from here, I'm going to make some cuts into our agar plates. And we're just going to drop them directly onto our grains. Now, the more pieces that you can put in here, the more inoculation points you can make in your jars, and the faster you'll be able to get some colonized growth. And we'll get that last piece in there as well, why not? Alright, that's good enough for this jar. Lid goes back on. And I'll screw this down tightly. And I'll put it aside for now. And I'll repeat the process for my other grain jars. Alright, so I'm going to speed this up here a little bit because you kind of already know what I'm doing here. So now I've only spawned out this one plate to my 3 jars. Now, you probably remember I made several plates of the transfers before. So what I like to do is I like to keep those plates as kind of like a master culture. Since they're already clean, I have them in my culture fridge, and they'll probably last for several months, probably like 6+ months, I would imagine. And then if I ever need to come back and grow more bear's tooth, I can always just use the other plates to spawn them out, make transfers, or turn them into liquid culture, and then work with them from there. But I like having plates as backups for my cultures. So this last jar, I'm just putting the rest of the plates in there directly, and then once all the jars are sealed up, I'll give them a good shake to distribute the mycelium around, and then I'll put these jars into a shelf at probably around like 70 degrees Fahrenheit to incubate. That's what my room temperature is pretty much. So yeah. Alright, that'll be it for this video. I have to wait for these jars to colonize. So stay tuned for part 2, where I'll show you guys how to spawn the colonized jars out to some wood-based substrate, and we'll get them to the fruiting stage. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps me know if I should make more content like this, and it helps with the YouTube algorithm and getting my videos recommended to more people who might be interested in growing mushrooms. As always, thank you for watching, much love, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.